Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for making the time on this rainy Thursday evening to join us for the human edge in an AI-first world. My name is Kika, and I've been in customer success for the past 8 years, supporting customers of different sizes across multiple industries, and I'll be your host for today. We have a lot of interesting perspectives for you today. We have a special guest, we have special prizes, and I will be taking you on a journey today to discuss the ways that we can leverage AI in the world of today. Please let me know if you have any questions, you need anything, and I also have our team from the Vancouver customer success community here today. We have Michelle, Mohit, Pedro, Akansha, Yash, Jillian, and Ryan. So please give us a wave. Yeah, feel free to ask any one of us if you need any help or you need anything during this evening today. Now, we've collaborated with some amazing sponsors, and we have big shout outs to give. A big shout out to Convergence, the sponsor who has generously given us this space, Iceberg IQ, and Main Street Brewing for the amazing beverages that we've had this evening. So I'm gonna need some help, guys. Our special guest, and I'm about to introduce her, is from out of town. So let's show that we have some big Vancouver hospitality. So let's, thank you. All right, so a little bit about our sponsors today. Now, Iceberg IQ is a win-loss and churn analysis company that helps CS leaders uncover the real stories behind customer churn. Right? We all know that sometimes customers don't tell us what they really feel and what they really need. So that's what Iceberg IQ helps us do. So we actually have Suman Melville from Iceberg IQ. Please raise a hand. Go talk to Suman about your needs, and she'll be happy to point you in the right direction. I'd also like to invite Matthew from Convergence to say a quick hello.
Hey guys. All right, I don't have too much to say. A lot of new faces here. Wow, unlike the usual events. My name is Matthew Hauser. I'm the co-founder of Convergence, which is an agency that I've run for almost 12 years now. On the side, because we have a space downtown, we host a lot of events, 50 to 60 a year. That's every week. Maori, hiding in the back, who doesn't like all the attention, is the orchestrator of probably the most prolific startup scene in Vancouver, which grew out of this office 3 years ago. We just do it because it's fun. On the side, not on the side, my main thing now is I run a startup called Simu Health, Simu as in simulation. It's a company that I successfully funded with a few million bucks of VC money last year. That was fun. And now I'm in selling mode, selling to hospitals, universities, and colleges in North America, any institution with a healthcare training and education program. I won't bore you with the details. I have nothing to sell you unless you're a hospital. Yeah, enjoy the show. Yeah, thanks for coming again. And pleasure to host your event, third time, fourth time?
Third time.
Yeah. Anyways, have fun. Beer in the fridge. Thanks,
Thank you, Matthew. So who's ready for the main event? So, all the way from Malaga, Spain, we have the pleasure and the honor of hosting a visionary customer success leader, our guest speaker, Daphne Costa Lopes. Now, Daphne has scaled organizations supporting about $3 billion in annual recurring revenue, and she's joining us today to share her roadmap on the second engine of growth. Those human pillars that AI simply can't replicate. After that, we'll host a Q&A, and we'll have time for some more networking after the Q&A is concluded. Now, after the Q&A, I will be hosting a raffle. So don't go away. Daphne is a gift that keeps on giving, so she has graciously given us a guide to CSMing in the age of AI. So without further ado, I have the honor of introducing Daphne.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction, Kika. It's so nice to meet you all. It's so great to be here in Vancouver. I came here for holiday and I messaged the guys from the Vancouver customer success community. I was like, do you have something going on? I'd love to meet the community local. And they were super generous to invite me in and allow me to speak to you today, which is really exciting. Okay, so I am using a clicker, so I need to just make sure, yeah, I have the right side. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about the human edge in an AI first world. I don't know about you, but AI is very disruptive right now. There is a bunch of kind of LinkedIn headlines of what AI is going to change, how it's going to take all of our jobs, and none of us are going to exist. So I've been thinking a lot about this. I also been thinking a lot about this with my own teams. So before I start, let me kind of do my addition to my introduction that Kika did. So I lead customer success at HubSpot. I'm the global director of enterprise accounts. I have teams all over the world, as the title says, from Australia all the way to Hawaii, anywhere in the middle. And I've been in customer success for over a decade. So I've been in startups, scale-ups, and now a big enterprise. I've seen customer success kind of like from CS 1.0 all the way to where we are now, which I think people say CS 5.0 at this point. I write a lot on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter, I have a podcast, and for that reason, last year I was, I don't know if it was voted or ranked the #1 customer experience creator on LinkedIn. So if you don't follow me yet, this is your cue. This one is out every single day for you, and the newsletter comes out every Friday, so there's one tomorrow. Okay, so I thought a lot about where I wanted to start this conversation about AI, and I think the best place to start is what is fundamentally changing about our industry when we think about AI. So for me, there's 3 main paradigm shifts that we're experiencing. The #1 is that products are delivering outcomes and not features. If you think about, traditional SaaS, what people bought was a set of tools. They got access to a toolkit that they could learn how to use and use that to execute tasks that they were responsible for. However, now with agentic technology, software is doing work for you on your behalf. And when that happens, there is this focus on value. Value has always been important. Customers want ROI for what they buy, but actually in a world where the software delivers the outcome, then everything revolves around the outcome. What is the task that you're going to resolve for me? So think about an AI for support tickets and kind of customer service. The outcome is the ticket being resolved, and that's what the customer cares about, is this thing helping complete the task. And with that type of software where you now have, you think about ChatGPT, for example, or your meeting recorder, where you can start getting value immediately. The moment you download the thing, you start getting value from it. So you put in your meeting recorder into your Zoom meeting, and then you finish your first meeting. The meeting transcript is there, the summary is there, the follow-up email might be there depending on the tool that you're using. So value is not only kind of front and center, it comes super quickly. And it's that time to value, which is an important metric, and it's always been an important metric in SaaS. It's pretty immediate, which didn't used to be. Then the other paradigm shift that we're seeing is that because we have this focus on the outcome and the resolution, then the pricing is shifting. So we're seeing now software that's priced based on outcomes and not access to the software. So if you think about, the Lovable, if you think about even like HubSpot, for example, we still have a SaaS subscription, but all of our AI tools are credit-based. So you buy a credit that will complete a task for you. Fin, the bot and intercom that resolves your tickets, that's like price per resolution. The SDR bots, they're now charging per lead, they're not charging for access. So pricing is changing. And because pricing is changing, we used to have these contracts, 12-month contracts, 24-month contracts, and you knew that the moment the customer signed, very excited, very excited about AI.
Word contracts was so
I know, the contracts. Yeah, so because the contracts are no longer kind of like governing the relationship, every single month you can have a different consumption level in some of these products. You have this need to start forecasting for what's going to happen. So this month, if a customer doesn't use all of their credits and you can't bill them for all the credits, the next month that they might use more, and then the following month. So usage and adoption, if you don't have a really strong pulse on that, you can't grow your revenue, but also like from a forecasting standpoint for your business, how much money are you going to make? It's not as predictable as SaaS. And then when we talk about the companies that have a mix, still SaaS and an element of outcomes-based priced, then you have this idea of when you get to the renewal, if a customer bought, let's say, a bundle of credits that they've had, they've been using every month, it gets to the renewal, it's very easy to look and say, I bought this thing and I didn't use this thing. So it's different when you have a big monolithic tool and you're paying a single price for that, and maybe you use 25% of the software, but you don't know how much it costs to use a portion of the software. Now with credits and outcome-based price, you know exactly per usage what you should be paying for. So we're now paying, we're pricing our software for usage and not access, which is a big shift for how customer success teams have worked historically. And then finally, if you think about how customers learn, they used to come to you, right, to your business. If they have a question, they go to your community. If they can't find the answer in the community or on your blog, they go to your support team, and then they talk to a person. And then maybe that was a strategic question that they had and the support team couldn't answer. And then they come to your inbox as a CSM and they will ask you those questions. So as a business, you were in the driving seat of educating your customer. And now, if you think about how people are learning, they're going to ChatGPT, they're going to Claude, they're asking these really contextual questions to these LLMs. And it's not just like, how do I log in? It's like, as a sales rep in a mid-sized company that sells to healthcare, how do I do this thing? So it's very, very, very contextual, which means that these AI-enabled users, they are coming to your inbox with expectations that are much higher than they used to, because they've already researched, they've already asked the question to the LLM, and if they're coming to you with that question, it's because they tried stuff and it just didn't work, or it's more complex. So you are experiencing, a different type of customer that's coming to you. So customers are getting their education from AI and not your team. And this is actually a really interesting thing. In HubSpot, for example, we used to pride ourselves about our SEO. That you could go on Google, we had such a great blog and such great community that you could go on Google and say, how do I do X in HubSpot? And the first thing that would come up was our website, was our blog, was our community, and we were in control of the education of our customers. And now we need to do that, but through LLMs. So we need to rank on the LLM. So no more kind of SEO, but AEO has become a big thing. So if you're not educating your customers, then who is educating your customers in that content? So those are the 3 paradigm shifts. I think they're like pretty fundamental that we are all experiencing, and that it does change how we do our jobs and the expectations that our customers have of us. But there's a huge opportunity in the back of this. You might have seen this graph. It's like it's gone everywhere on the internet. It's basically how fast the AI native companies are growing. And they have this line, which is the 100 million in revenue mark. And you see there, Slack used to hold like the fastest SaaS company to get to $100 million. And it was by a mile to the next one, which was Twilio. But then you look at OpenAI, you look at Lovable, you look at Cursor. They're all the AI-enabled companies, the AI-native companies, and they get there so much faster. So the growth in this new world, the opportunity is just out of the charts, which is obviously why everybody's jumping into it. Like there's a huge financial opportunity. But getting customers and signing customers is cool, but keeping them is important, right? We know how much it costs to sign a new customer, to acquire a customer. And when we look at the data around retention, the retention in SaaS, especially B2B SaaS, is really healthy. So you look at the median NRR, it was 82% for B2B SaaS. And this includes like startups, so if you look at that and you think that's low, it's because there's a bunch of like small companies in there. But the upper quartile was close to 97%. In B2C, that's much lower. You can see there it's 49%. But what is really, really concerning is that in the AI companies, it's even lower than that. When you look at retention in these AI products, the median NRR is, GRR is 40% and NRR is 48%. So these companies are able to grow very fast and attract customers in a really expedited way, but they're not able to keep them. And what is going to happen to all of our companies as they introduce more outcomes-based pricing, they reduce the entry point. You can start with a much smaller ticket price into the company because you grow as you consume. Like that's the reality that we are all like looking down onto, is a reality where retention can slip very, very quickly if we take the same principles that we did in SaaS into this new world, because we don't have time to lock a customer in a contract of 12 months and deliver value 3 months down the line. If you sign them now and they don't see value, they're just not going to come back, right? So I think everything about how we do customer success is going to have to evolve in order for us to meet this challenge and meet this moment. And I think personally, like only the companies that master value delivery are going to survive in this new world, because it's all about value. It's all about what am I getting from paying this product. If I'm buying you to get ticket resolution, am I getting ticket resolution? If I'm buying you for leads, am I getting leads? Like it's going to be very, in a way, transactional. I'm paying for exactly the outcome that you need to deliver. So value will be even more important. The problem is that we are not good at measuring value. And I do the survey every year that I put out kind of around October time. And it's, I ask the same questions every year, which are like challenges, opportunities ahead, etc. And I have every year it's growing in terms of the number of people that answer. And last year I had, I think just shy of 500 different companies answering the survey. And 56% of them say that the biggest challenge is measuring value. They don't know how to measure value. And that is really, again, if you think about this new world where value is king, that's a really concerning stat. And then the other thing I believe is that in this new world, only CSMs who move upstream are going to survive. Because again, customers are learning from LLMs, they're able to get those contextual answers. They don't need you to be the gatekeeper of simple answers and transactional things. They need you when the problem is bigger, more strategic, and sometimes they don't even know that they need you, right? It's like change management is things that you see but they don't see. So CSMs need to really move upstream. But the problem here is that, I put that LinkedIn post there because it's it continues to grow in terms of the people that engage with it, but I do consulting, and I help, people that are kind of like stuck in CS. I do these 1 hour sessions. And so I talk to a lot of people every year that are in CS. And there was, big problem that always comes up is productivity. So people are trying to figure out like how can they get everything done that they need to do? How can they segment better? How can they target their customers better? How can they get engagement, etc. So I was chatting to this guy who was like really stuck on like how he could do more than what he was doing already. So I asked him to walk me through his steps. Like, walk me through what you do to prepare for a call. Walk me through like your workflow. When you finish that call, what happens? And this was a 1 hour call, and he spent 47 minutes walking me through how he prepares for one call. So if you have a call with a customer and it's a 1 hour call, and you're taking 45 minutes to prepare for that call, because you're jumping between systems, you're trying to get information from different places, sometimes not even different places, sometimes different people, like you're meeting other people. It's a really, really cumbersome process. So like CSMs are stuck in admin work, and I think this is like there's a chasm between like what leadership teams want and thinks happens, especially now with AI, versus what happens on the ground in order for you to feel like you have the information you need to show up and be able to be confident, be able to add value to your customers. So CSMs are really, really stuck on doing admin. So I keep asking myself this question, like how can CS teams deliver value if they don't know what value is and their humans are stuck doing admin? So it's a very, very hard. If you figure out the answer, I'll be here afterwards.
Come on, Mikey.
So I do have a hypothesis. Again, I've been in customer success for a long time. I've been around the block to see this a few times, and I think this problem comes from the way companies grow. So I like to use the analogy of a house, a building, and a skyscraper to explain this. So when you build a house, you have a set of materials, tools, technology, skills that you have to build that house. When you need to move from a house to a building, you can't stick a house on top of a house. You have to change the materials, the technology, the skills. You have to change that in order to transform a 2-story house into a 10-story building. And it's the same thing when you move from a building to a skyscraper. You can't stick building on top of building. You need to completely change the engineering that you use. You need to change all the materials. You have to invent new things sometimes. Like if you're building the Burj Khalifa, which is that building, like we had to invent new ways of doing elevators. We needed to invent new materials in order to get to a mile-high building. So again, like as you grow as a company, you can't just like take the stuff that worked when you had 50 customers and keep doing it when you have 100 customers, and keep doing it when you have 1,000 customers or 100,000 customers. You have to really reinvent yourself. And that doesn't really happen in customer success. What I see is the same playbooks everywhere. I talk to people in small companies, medium-sized companies, large companies. Everybody's using the same playbook, the same tools, which is problematic. They just keep putting house on top of house, and it obviously doesn't work. I believe that this is a big thing for us now as well. It was already a big problem for CS teams before AI even came about. But now that AI is here, we can't afford not to fix this problem. We need to evolve this playbook with the new technology. And it's not just customer success, it's the entire go-to-market engine that needs to evolve. The way we sell, the way we market, the way we service, everything changes because the business model has changed. So we can't afford to leave things the same way. So here's how I think that the playbook needs to evolve and the things I've been playing with. So the first one is this move from obsessing over adoption to obsessing over value. Before, you could get to a place where you could say, Mr. Customer, is your renewal, you've been using this product, all your team logs in, everybody's using it, everybody seems to like it, and that was enough to kind of get through the line. But now, with how customers pay, and also because everybody's more obsessed with ROI, efficiency, etc., you need to really be focused on value. Then the other thing is automation needs to evolve into orchestration. I am 100% sure that you've been in the receiving end of automated messages, and it doesn't feel personal to the customer. Everybody can spot a mile away that it's an automated message, and it doesn't resonate as much with the customer. So in order to really personalize and make the customer feel like they are important, understood, you need to move from this world of automation into a world of orchestration. And orchestration is possibly like an overused word, but we never had the technology to actually do it. Now we do. Like, we have now the technology to scrape all the calls, the emails, the tickets, and build a profile and a picture of who this customer is and what they want and what they care about, and use that information to orchestrate their journey, to design what's the next best step for that customer. Not for a segment of customers that you're putting together in a bucket, and it might or might not resonate because, you know, maybe you're using company size, or maybe you're using like age or MRR. You actually get to orchestrate this so that the customer feels like you understand them fully. Then segmentation, moving to individual tailoring, and it's a little bit of what I was just saying. So we used to just segment customers in buckets and say, you're a mid-market company paying from $1,000 to $5,000, you're all the same. We treat you exactly the same, and you're part of the segment. You get the same content, you get the same service, everything else. And now we need to start thinking about this individual tailoring that we can do because of the data that we have. Then we need to move from reactive to predictable. So reactive is how most CS teams work today, if we're being honest. You know, it's you get the message in your inbox, you get the fire from the customer on something that happened, you get the low NPS score and you react to that. Like, a lot of CS teams are still working reactively, but in order for us to move into this new world of AI and really drive forward usage and value, we need to start moving into a more like predictable pattern where you can see where the customer is going based on where they are now and the behaviors that they're displaying. And then we move from renewal to consumption. So renewal, big event, every 12 months, every 24 months, you have this big moment, conversation, last 3 months, you start like T-3 months, you start the conversation, and then you engage with the customer, with the buying committee, with the procurement team, and this and the other. Like, it's a huge part of the CSM's job is to orchestrate that process. And we spend a lot of time there in the last 3 months of the journey if you're working with annual contracts. But again, moving into a world of consumption where there's a heartbeat, and every single day, every single week, every single month, you're driving that consumption with the customer. And then we need to move from long deployments to immediate value. This is not something CS can do alone, though. It's not. This is a product problem, really. But again, it's like the part of the go-to-market motion. We can't, with these products that customers can just turn on and get value from, if your deployment takes 12 months to get done, and it requires an entire team of consultants to come in, like, it's not going to meet the customer's expectations. And then finally, we need to move from SEO to AEO. So from search engine optimization, being found on Google, being found through search, you need to move to this AI engine optimization, which is all your content, all the great stuff that you're producing is in the LLM. So as the customer is educating themselves on this stuff, it's your content that's being used to educate them. Not your competitors, not, you know, some random forum on Reddit. It's actually like stuff that's going to be valuable for them. So this is how I think the playbook needs to evolve for us as we move forward. But then it leaves us with the question of, okay, if AI is taking education, data analysis, and journey orchestration, which is all the stuff we do, right, every day, then what's left? Like, what am I doing? So I also ask myself that question. I think there's like a lot of stuff that's left for us to do, and personally I think it's the most exciting part of the job that's left. I like to use this 2x2 matrix to really kind of like wrap my head around where does the CSM sit? Like where is the CSM still adding value? So in the y-axis we have emotional or processual, and then in the x-axis we have technical and commercial. I think anything that's technical and processual or commercial and processual, this is the stuff that is transactional, really. I think this is all going to be agentic. So if that's where you play today, personally, I think that is prime for being taken. So if you think about like technical and processual, it's like how-to questions that your customers are asking. How do I do X? If it's processual and commercial, it's like, I just want to add 2 seats to my subscription. Like simple. Like if the work that you're doing sits there, I think AI is going to be very good at doing that, if not already very good at doing that. In HubSpot, 85% of our support tickets, which are technical and processual, 85% of those get resolved by AI today. So I think personally, like that area is going to be taken over. Then technical and emotional. So technical and emotional is like stuff that's like hard to do, but it's also really important. If you mess it up, that for that company is a big deal, right? So it's like you have complex integrations that are, changing the way that maybe a process works, how teams have worked in the past. Like you have that element of change and importance and risk, which makes that an emotional piece of the work, but it's technical. For me, that's where the forward deployed engineer play. Forward deployed engineer is a terminology that has been coined by Palantir, but it's basically an engineer that works directly with the customer and does the work for them. And in AI, this is super important because most people don't know how to get this work done. So if you say to a customer, like, you're gonna have to implement this new AI workflow, they might not have the resources in-house, the skill in-house to do that work. And that's why companies like Palantir, like OpenAI, they have these forward deployed engineers that go and do the work for the customer. So the customer doesn't have to worry about getting somebody trained into doing this, like they get it done for them. Which also plays on the deployment being shorter, right? So if you have to teach somebody for them to make mistakes and you teach them, it takes a long time. But if you go and you do it for them and you have the expertise, then you get it done pretty quickly. So that's where the forward deployed engineer will play. And then anything that's emotional and commercial, that's for me personally where I think the CSM plays a role. I think that's where the CSM really shines. Like think about when you are bringing a new product to a company, you are basically saying to them, there's a better way to do what you do today. Somebody high up in the leadership team has made a bet that this is going to help us increase productivity, that this is going to reduce risk, that this is going to increase revenue. Like they're making a big bet that by doing something differently, we're going to be better. To do something differently, usually as you go down the layers in the organization, it's hard, and I know you all know this. Like you have to get people who have done that job for years to decide to do that job differently. You have to get people who are afraid of AI to allow AI to come in and integrate into their work and to trust the output and to help train the AI. And, so I think that like anything to do with that more emotional side, but that's more commercial, like that's where the CSM is really, really gonna shine. So that's when I say the CSM needs to move upstream, it's because most CSMs today play like in that kind of processual commercial area that AI is gonna be so good at, and moving upstream just means moving more into that emotional quadrant. So that's my bet. I could be wrong, but that's what I see happening today as I see AI coming into our work and taking some of the admin working from our hands. Like I said, the AI that's coming into support. Like that's where I see the work being taken. That got a little messed up, but anyway, I love a before and after slide. So I think that the way our behavior changes is the CSM of yesterday hopes that their customer will see value. They're like, in the weeds with their customer, helping them activate things, helping answer questions and how choose and this and the other, hoping that that is going to be helpful, hoping that by the time the renewal comes, the customer will have gotten what they wanted from the software. But the CSM of tomorrow, they engineer value realization. So they play in that like top quadrant where they're not just answering questions, they are leading the conversation. They are educating the customer on what is the value that they should be looking for, how should they be measuring, what are the benchmarks, outcomes, expectations. They're really shaping that value conversation and helping the customer structure that. And they do that through a success plan. I think success plans are not going anywhere. I think a success plan is a very, very important tool to help consolidate all the conversations you have with the right point of contact and put it in a page that's like, here's our mutually agreed goals, here's how we're gonna get there, there's accountability, there is ownership. So I think that the CSM of tomorrow will really have to embrace this way of working. Then I think the CSM of yesterday really thinks about activity and how busy they are. Like in your own personal work, you're saying, I have 7 calls to do today. I have 100 emails in my inbox that I need to send, or I need to do 10 business reviews every month, or whatever the metric, the activity metrics that we have in our organizations. That is not going to be how we measure value for ourselves anymore. We're going to be measuring value by outcomes and value realized. Companies are not going to be able to operate the way that they do today, because if they're selling value, if they're selling outcomes, they're going to have to measure those outcomes. And then, what today is basically a gap or a hole, which is nobody knows the impact you drive, because we don't even know the impact that we're driving for our customers, never mind broken down by your individual book of business. But as we're going to be charging for outcomes, we're going to be having to build the instrumentation to measure all this stuff. We're going to have to be opinionated on what value we drive for customers. So it will be easier to directly correlate the work that you do to the value that it drives. Then the CSM of yesterday, run calls in a cadence because the process says so. So it says, I have a call per quarter with my customers, or I have a call a month with my customers, and that's just like a heartbeat that I have. Instead of doing that, it will all be about what is the next best action with this customer. Some customers will need you more than other customers in order to unlock value because they have been struggling and they haven't been off the ground, or maybe there was a big change, a leadership change in the organization, and they were in a good track and now they fell off the track and you have to lean in closer. Today, it's very hard for you to see all these things, but with AI, scraping calls, scraping like what's happening with interactions and tickets and even news, you'll be able to much more closely connect product outcomes to behavior and information that you have, and then decide what's the next best action. Where do I have to invest in order to see the outcomes that I need? Then the next thing is explaining features and workflows without context. We in HubSpot, we do call listening, so to coach people and help them get better at their skills. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen CSMs demoing tools and showing things around, not knowing why. What do you want to do? What is the goal? What is the process? What are you trying to do? Just showing tools, especially at onboarding. I've seen so many onboardings that are literally like a deep dive demo of the entire product. It's like, here's every button of the product and what it does. So we're not going to be able to do that anymore. We don't have the time because customers want to get value quickly. But also, I think the patience from the customer for sitting through that stuff is going to be much lower than it has been in the past. Instead, we're going to be really focusing on interpreting the context for the customer. What is it that you told me that you want to do? How do you do this today in your organization? So let's focus on that thing that you need to do in the way that suits your business. And helping them make decisions as well, like guiding judgment. So many things are, there are 5 ways of doing the same thing. What's the right way for your company? What's the right way for your industry, for what gives you the outcome for your customer? So I think that judgment call, which is like, you call it taste, right, as a taste choice. I think the CSM is going to be way more responsible for that. Then barely preparing for customer conversations and relying on improvisation. If it takes 47 minutes to prepare for a call, we're not spending 47 minutes every time to prepare for a call. We don't have that time, and there's literally no judgment for me. I also don't spend 47 minutes preparing for the call. But obviously when you jump into a call and you don't have the context that you need in order to have a really valuable conversation, you end up having a conversation that's maybe more transactional, maybe it's the customer guiding that conversation. You just don't get to the core. And if a call is short, a 30-minute call or 45 minutes call, like very quickly you can just have a chit chat for that time and really have a good relationship with the customer but not drive any outcomes. So instead of doing that, like in this world of AI, if we use it well, if the CSM is enabled with AI, you can arrive to that call with much better preparation because AI has done the work of consolidating the information from those 7 tools that you're going in between, or the calls that happen with the sales team or with the sports team, taking that information and it's giving you a much more consolidated and opinionated preparation for what is it that you should be talking to the customer about. And then moving from following rigid playbooks, regardless of the context of the customer, like the onboarding is 6 steps, we do the 6 steps. Every call is one thing. To being, to adapting your framework, your approach, your process to the customer and what it is that they're trying to do, what's their reality, what's their maturity, are they ready for the thing that you're going to be showing them. And then moving from the human acting as the interface for all the repetitive work, which is like the customer gets to your inbox asking you to do these tasks for them, and then moving into using AI to orchestrate the customer journey in such a way that anytime that you are on the call or that the customer gets in touch with you, is the stuff that only you can do. It's the stuff that where you add value, you help them make decisions, you're driving change. You know, again, like change is not something that the customer proactively usually comes to your inbox with, but it's something that you realize that unless we do that, the customer is not going to get to the outcome. So we need to drive it proactively. And then finally, a CSM of the past is a CSM that avoids tension and wants to be liked. You know, it's like a relationship and warm and fuzzy, and you want the customer to smile all the time, to like really creating some tension, right? So creating the tension by saying the hard thing that needs to be done, which is hard to say sometimes. But again, if you have the data, the context, if you know their goals, it's easier to do that. So then you address that tension directly, and it's all outcome based. Is if you continue to behave this way and not do X, Y, and Z, you're not going to achieve that goal that you told me is very important. Is that where you want to end? Is that, is that where we're going to be in 3 months' time when we sit down to have this conversation? Like having those hard conversations is easier when you know what the goal is. So when you have the context, when you have the behavior information, when you have the product adoption information, the value data, you can have that conversation with more authority and confidence. So I think the CSM of tomorrow is a CSM that's very different than the CSM of yesterday. It's a CSM that is more commercial, that is more opinionated, that is, like I said, moving upstream to have strategic conversations. I know every time I talk to a CSM, we all want to be strategic partners to our customers, but you don't get to be strategic partners to your customer. You earn that right. You earn that right when you understand their business, what they're trying to do, when you understand your own product, the strategies that should be used, when you hold them accountable, when you have a plan. Like that's a strategic partnership. So I think that's where CS is going, and I think it's a really exciting place actually for all of us. And in order to do all of this, I believe personally that there's 3 skills that we have as CS folks that AI doesn't have, that will enable us to really ace this new world. The first one is strategic influence. So how many times you sit with a customer and you ask them what are their goals and they don't know? It happens very often, very often. There's a few reasons for that. One, because sometimes the person that made the decision to buy, to put the strategy together, it's not the person that you're chatting to every day. There's a disconnect there between the points of contact. So sometimes it's because of that. But sometimes it's because something is new. I was chatting to a good friend of mine that works at OpenAI, and we were having this discussion where companies are buying these tools, but they don't know what they can do. They're kind of like, I'm just going to put them in the hands of my people and they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out how we automate everything we do, how it adds value. So they don't have the answers. They have this vision of a world that AI makes us all more productive. Maybe they have a figure in their head. They're like, if we can get 10% more productive, we can increase our margins and that's going to move our share price up. Like, they have these larger concepts, but they don't have necessarily always exactly what the structured goal in the format of a one-page strategy is. So as a CSM, strategic influence is being able to have that conversation and shape that conversation. Is being able to say, if you want to achieve that thing, what are the plays that we can put in place? What are the ways that my product can help your organization? Is bringing the metrics to them sometimes. Sometimes they don't know what metrics they should be measuring. So it's you saying, here are the things that are important for your industry, for companies like yours, for your region, whatever makes sense from for your business. But it's like being able to be opinionated and share with the customer how your product helps their business and get their buy-in so that those things become important to them. So that's difficult work for a CSM to do, and requires credibility, which is something you have to build. How to speak the language of value and not features or activity. That's like a really important thing. I cannot tell you how many times I've sat in quarterly business reviews with CSMs presenting to pretty senior people in the customer's organization. And they're talking about adoption numbers, they're talking about product usage, which none of those senior leaders care about. They care about the value, the outcomes. And again, it's not all on the CSM to come up with this stuff, right? Like there is an element of this that's the business, the product team, etc. So it is a full company problem. It's not just a CS problem. But in order for you to have the credibility in that room, you have to speak the language of value. Otherwise, Nick Mehta from Gainsight once said this to me. He said, you get delegated down to the person you sound like. And that is like, I say this to every single person that works for me. It's like, if you sound like the junior tech person, that's where they're gonna send you. They're gonna be like, that's not they will come once to that conversation, but after they have that conversation, they will say, your peer is not me, your peer is that guy, and they will send you down to that person. So the moment you get sent down to that person, to climb back from that person, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be really hard. Okay, so that's strategic influence. The next one is relational intelligence. So relational intelligence is how to find the real power in the organization. It's navigating the org chart to find who's making the decisions, who's influencing them, how do I get them to buy into our product and what we do and the value we drive. And it's also how to communicate clearly. You can't communicate the same way to your business champion, the executive, the tech person, the procurement person. They're all different people that want different things. So communicating with them, getting their buy-in, shaping the narrative and the story, that's all relational intelligence. And then the last one is operational agility, which is being able to use all the technology that's now available to us in order to make us better. Not being afraid of the agentic stuff, not being afraid of the automation, the tools that are brought to the organization. It's being able to use it to get the information, to get the process, to get the help, the productivity that you need so that you can have those two first things and spend all your time there. If you if you can spend all your time on the strategic influence and relational intelligence, you move the needle in your company's, in your customer's organization, and in turn in your own organization. But you gain that by actually having that operational agility and being able to reinvent yourself. So this is the 3 things I think make CSMs really special and unique and important and valuable and needed in an AI first world. And a shameless plug to the guy that built on how to build these skills. We're giving away a copy of this guide today. And honestly, for me, it's when I was thinking about all these things earlier this year, I decided to build this guide because I think there are some true tested frameworks out there to achieve those skills and to build mastery across these skills, because they are very big, right? It's like relational intelligence, like how do I get better at relational intelligence? There are key components that make up these skills, and you can use frameworks and tools to help you, which is why I built this guide. So that's it. Questions? Comments, thoughts, pushbacks? I accept it all.
Question. Question about if you're measuring outcomes and values rather than activities and busyness, how are you thinking about training or the skills that you're looking for those people? Because obviously the activity and business right now is kind of just, it's how we identify that you're doing something, you know, it's even the idea of like, you know, you're putting in the work, you will get there eventually. So if we're looking at the outcomes and the value, how are we building our teams, or what should we be focusing on in terms of, I guess, building those skills in place?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a really great question, and you know, I talk a lot about like leading and lagging indicators, which is like, you know, the inputs, right? It's like what you do today that's going to get that outcome tomorrow, right? So you still need some level of that. What I think is where a lot of CS teams have gotten lost is what I said at the start of, they all use the same playbook. No matter where you are, the size of the company, what your product does, what kind of customer you have, you just find these same playbooks everywhere. And I think that, you know, in my experience, a lot of those playbooks aren't right. So like when you are, I don't know, you come into a business and they're like, you have to talk to a customer once a month. Where did that come from? Is that driving value for the customer, or am I having this like empty conversation every single month that isn't driving towards anything? Is it better for me to have 3 calls this week with this customer who's really struggling, and I can help them move the needle into that outcome? We don't have that level of like understanding of the intervention. And to give you some background, like I'm a scientist by background, so I'm a chemist, and I'm like, and my team is like, I drive them insane with, you know, really analyzing what we do, the impact, correlation, causation, all these things, because I'm like, I don't mind having an activity metric, and in fact my teams do have activity metrics, but we stress test those activity metrics to the point that I know that when we do this thing, we can expect a 2 points improvement on this value metric. Or like, I've been very maniacal about that. And it literally is a science experiment. It's like you do this, you A/B test, you test for like 50 customers here and there, and then you measure, and then you go again, etc. So I think that in the new world, like, I don't think I think good activity metrics, good interventions will still be valuable, but it has to be reverse engineered from the goal. It can't just be the playbook says we do this thing and we do this thing to whatever quality, to whatever. So I think that's where maybe a little bit sensationalist of me to say they're going away, but I think what really is going away is doing them mindlessly. They will be important if you want to really engineer your success, I think. Yeah. I don't think I can pass the microphone that far, but
Yeah. If anyone else has a question, you could just come up this way, or you could just stand up.
Hi, thank you. That was so good. Just building on what you were talking about, if you throw the playbook out the window And if the playbook in the past was based on activity, which I've never done it that way, but let's just say that most companies are operating that way, it's a way that you can also capacity plan. So you know that a CSM can do X number of calls, handle this much ARR, like all the stuff that you would do, and then you're like, now the ARR is this, I need this many people, this many bodies. How do you do it if the playbook's out the window?
Yeah, great question.
Because I mean, you could anybody, anytime, do anything.
Yeah, no, you're so right. Like, there are so many parts of the business that are built based on capacity, right? So, like, how many people I need to do this thing. Again, like the same way I was saying to him, I think that reverse engineering into the financial of how you run your team, that's still gonna have to happen. But I think that number is gonna be much bigger than it is today because of all the AI. Like right now, I think there's like this golden ratio that a lot of companies use, like around 1 to 70, 1 to 100 customers if you're in the high touch segment. Whereas just like, that's like the golden productivity zone. If you get to that, you're doing really well. I think we're gonna rethink all of that because AI is gonna take over so much of the work. We're probably gonna be able to do more than we do today. But I do think that in the same way that there is like a sales rep that has a quota that they're responsible for, and there's like a revenue per rep, that's the measure of productivity on the rep side. I think in CS we're gonna have to reinvent our metrics to find what that standard is for us. I don't think it's gonna be a count number. You know, it's not gonna be like 1 to 70, it's gonna be like, what is the complexity of this customer? One of the things that we do with, now that we're playing with AI, and you don't sign the customer for AI for $1 billion, you sign them for a much smaller amount and they grow to that. Like the propensity to grow of an account, like what room exists in that account, and a CSM being assigned to that account with the goal to expand them into their full potential, and that being part of the metric. You know, I don't have the answer of what it is, what's going to be, but I think we're going to have to ask ourselves all these questions and be really honest about the messy middle, which is a mix of like the activity stuff and all this stuff that we want to see in the future. So if you figure it out, Ellie, you please message me. I'm really curious.
Well, the interesting thing, can everybody hear me this stuff?
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that if the goal of the CSM actually does become the upsell, which is like who actually has time to do that shit now. If the goal actually becomes that and you actually have the time to do that and you're actually proving that like customer pays X today, this is where we know we could get them to, and you get them to that, it becomes a different conversation because you're actually connected commercially to revenue like properly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when you say you need more headcount,
Yeah.
they're like, take more headcount.
Yeah, revenue, yeah.
Yeah, because
revenue
you're
is-
actually connected to revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're sort of dancing around something you brought up, segmentation. I'm in B2B SMB world, so not enterprise, but I often, as a CS guy, think segmentation is just useless and annoying, and for some of the reasons you pointed out. Do you think segmentation almost goes away when we're talking about the sort of personal approach and the AI able to really help that? Does segmentation still have a place in CS? And if it does, how do I go to my marketing people and say my segmentation is very different to yours? Because like before the sale, I feel like you, to your point, it's customer size or whatever. Once you get to the CS side, I feel it's like maturity and your team and other sort of ways of segmenting things. I almost want to just blow your segments out of the water and start again. I don't know if you've done that at HubSpot, or you must segment a lot in HubSpot because your whole tool is about segmentation. I'd love to hear a bit on that.
Yeah, we have 300,000 customers. We have like there
You
is
have to
no
segment.
like there is like no world where we can operate a business without segmentation. But I think what you said is the root of that. So first of all, I think like the vision, right? I don't know. I think we're a little far from that, but the vision with the AI plus human is that you can treat every customer like they're the only one, because you can understand them, how they use, what they want individually, and tailor to them. So whether the financials make sense for you to put a human behind that account, obviously you need a customer that pays a certain amount of money for you to put a human behind that. But I think that the promise of AI is that they will all feel like they're the only one, which I think is cool. Like I would love, like I'm a customer of a bank called Revolut. I don't know if it's big here, but in Europe it's very big. But I used to be a customer of a traditional bank for many, many years. And I hated that the whole experience was absolutely awful for everything. Everything you needed to call the bank. Sometimes you needed to go to the branch to do something. And you're like, and they close at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's like, it was like
It's still like that
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
like-
thing.
Yeah.
We're all struggling with that.
So I think all the traditional banks are still like that, but Revolut came about, and they really revolutionized the customer experience for a bank, and to the point that you get to do everything that you need by yourself. Their AI tool, their bot is super good. When you need support, which is very rare because their app is so good, like you can get most of the answers from the bot, but then you get a human. Like they just made it so seamless and great. And I think about that a lot because, like, as a small customer, like you also don't have a lot of time. You don't want to call a human to get something done. You just want to get it done. So if you can get AI to give your small customers that experience where they get what they want, they get what they need, but you don't need a human on the back of that, I actually think that's really positive for them. But on the segmentation question, I think segmentation will continue to exist from a financial perspective, because you can't push resources behind really, really small accounts. But I do think it's going to evolve and is already evolving. So you talked about maturity. Maturity, I think, it's an important thing. Like, are you a customer that has used this type of tool before and know what you're doing, even if it's like a new interface to it, but you've used this process before, or are you brand new to this world? Like that, those are two very different educational paths. Or that propensity to grow score. It's like, is this an account that, yes, they're small, but if you really invest, they can grow massively, so you are going to put a human behind it. I think you can make more nuanced decisions about segmentation that aren't like the how much you pay, well, how big is your business. You can actually like take different cohorts from all the buckets and say, I'm going to invest humans here, and bring them into either a human motion or like not fully human, but a human-led journey versus an AI-led journey. So I think segmentation is going to change, and I don't think it needs to be the same for marketing and CS. Like, you might want to be able to bucket the information to report back to the board, the leadership, or whatever. But in terms of like how you work every day, I don't think your marketing team and you have to use the same buckets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna have time for more questions, I'm sorry. But I'll be here for the networking, so you can come and ask the questions. Okay, this is the draft, okay.
Thank you, Daphne. Please, can we give a round of applause? I could stay here all night talking about this. I'm sure you all could too.